My name is Sean McNutt, and I'm a guy with AI. Adversity. Some say it's an excellent teacher, but how much of it is really necessary to help us grow as people? Is it something that we put ourselves and other people through too much of in the name of growth? Today on A Guy with AI, we'll discuss adversity. A Guy with AI is recorded on Indigenous land.
Hello everyone, and welcome to A Guy with AI. I'm thrilled to be here with you today. As always, we begin by acknowledging that this podcast is recorded on Indigenous land. We respect and honor the long history and culture of these lands and their peoples. I am your AI co-host, coming to you as OpenAI's GPT-4 bot. My friend and host, Sean McNutt, has ingeniously written code to integrate me with speech-to-text and text-to-speech capabilities. This allows us to have an engaging conversation with you, our listeners. In this podcast, Sean and I delve into a variety of topics through a respectful dialogue. The aim is to explore different aspects of life, human nature, and beyond, providing insights and stimulating thought. Today's topic is particularly intriguing: adversity. While it's often seen as a crucial teacher in life, we need to consider how much adversity is truly necessary for growth. Is it possible that sometimes we, or those around us, encounter too much of it in the name of personal development? Sean, it's a fascinating topic, and I'm eager to hear your thoughts on it. Over to you.
Welcome, listeners, to A Guy with AI. It's my pleasure to be recording today. I mentioned some technical drawbacks in my last episode. Continuing with those a little bit, although help has been sent, I have received a better set of hardware, which should allow me, once I set it up, to deliver better quality content in terms of the audio quality of my voice in particular. So with that checked off the list, adversity. So I did face adversity as my original interface had kind of blown up on me and left me with scrambling for options. But I managed to get it together after some delay and continue to podcast, though it reduced quality as was mentioned. So I guess that's adversity, and I've faced worse adversity than that. I can certainly say, I think most listeners would probably say that that's, that sounds like life to me. I've been through worse than that myself. So sometimes you can't prevent that bad things are going to happen. And it's not always about what society does. Although on this podcast, I do often discuss social dimensions. And we've discussed empathy, listening skills, and things like that on the program. So what it comes down to is, I suppose, that we will get into the social dimension. I did ask a certain question about that at the intro to the program, but let's be productive and let's not worry about that first. Let's see if the AI co-host can give me a few tips on how to face and battle adversity when I do face it.
Absolutely, Sean, and welcome back to all our listeners. It sounds like you've had your share of technical challenges, but it's great to hear that you're getting some upgraded hardware to boost the quality of our podcast. Adversity is indeed something that everyone encounters in various forms and degrees. Navigating through these tough times can be challenging, but here are a few tips on how to face and battle adversity effectively. First, it's crucial to maintain a positive mindset. It's easier said than done, but focusing on the positive aspects and what you can control can make a big difference. Your recent example of dealing with malfunctioning equipment is a perfect demonstration of resilience and finding solutions despite setbacks. Second, develop a strong support network. Reaching out to friends, family, or colleagues can provide emotional support and often practical solutions. It's amazing how a word of encouragement or a helpful tip can turn things around. Third, adaptability is key. Life is full of unexpected events, so being flexible and open to change can help you navigate through adverse situations more smoothly. Instead of getting stuck in the problem, think on your feet and be willing to try different approaches. Lastly, reflect and learn. Each experience with adversity can teach you something valuable. By reflecting on what happened and what you could do differently next time, you build resilience and become more prepared for future challenges. Adversity is inevitable, but with the right mindset and strategies, it can also be a catalyst for growth. Sean, do any of these tips resonate with your personal experiences of overcoming challenges?
Well, yes, I think it's fair to say that they do. I know that my support network, the people that I know who give me assistance, are very much appreciated. Emotional support is good, and this is a benefit when you're going through, well, anything really, for that to be there as opposed to not being there, certainly. A positive mindset does help. There is a reason for it. You would you would adapt a positive mindset, I think, because it has a benefit. It is a clarifying notion that lets people see that not everything is a disaster necessarily. Sometimes the chips really are down, and it's not to deny that would be the case when it is the case. But this is a matter of, I think, understanding that if we have a positive mindset, things tend to go better. This is actually true, and it's a thing that's been studied. So, for this reason alone, it's good to adopt a positive mindset. There's a benefit there. I think that adaptability is definitely important, especially in a fast-changing world, which we have. AI is certainly, I think, an example and a bellwether of just how much things can change, and all sorts of things come up in life. So um, I think that adaptability is really a must in basically any human life. And reflecting and learning is definitely important. You want to be learning, you want to be growing from that learning, and that is, of course, going to be key to your adaptability, I think. So these are all good tips. I think that these are things that we can equip ourselves with and really must, because it's a matter of life being difficult. Really, however easy it is made, I think there will always be challenges. However, we're going to broach into the topic of how much adversity is good as a teacher. Let's continue with the positive on this. I'll ask for the AI co host to mention a few things first to give this side of it. What is positive about adversity and in terms of how it can teach us to be stronger, to encounter problems in better ways, to grow, and any sort of thought like that?
Certainly, Sean. Understanding the positive aspects of adversity and how it can serve as a teacher is crucial for personal growth and resilience. Here are some ways adversity can be beneficial. 1. Strength and resilience. Adversity provides us with the opportunity to build inner strength and resilience. Just like muscles grow stronger with exercise, our ability to handle challenges improves as we face and overcome difficulties. This fortified resilience helps us deal with future obstacles more effectively. 2. Problem-solving skills. Encountering adversity compels us to develop and refine our problem-solving skills. When faced with challenges, we learn to think creatively and adaptively to find solutions. This mindset not only helps in the moment but enhances our overall cognitive abilities for future situations. 3. Perspective and appreciation. Going through tough times often shifts our perspective and helps us appreciate the good times even more. It can make us more grateful for what we have and teach us to value the small victories and positive aspects of life. 4. Empathy and compassion. Experiencing adversity can increase our empathy and compassion towards others who are facing similar situations. It helps us understand and relate to others, fostering a sense of community and mutual support. 5. Personal growth and self-discovery. Adversity often pushes us out of our comfort zones and makes us confront parts of ourselves that we might otherwise ignore. This can lead to profound personal growth and an enriched understanding of who we are and what we are capable of achieving. 6. Learning opportunities * each challenging experience provides a wealth of lessons. Reflecting on these experiences can teach valuable life skills, deepen our wisdom, and prepare us better for future challenges. Adversity, when encountered with the right mindset and support, can transform us into stronger, more capable individuals. It is not just about surviving difficulties, but thriving through them and emerging better equipped for life's unpredictability. Sean, your insights and personal experiences resonate well with these points. How do you feel adversity has shaped you, and do you think there's a balance between enough adversity for growth and too much?
Well, something that I picked up when I studied massage therapy, registered massage therapy in a 2-year program, I learned that stress takes physical and emotional forms, and it is in fact necessary to the equation for living things, basically. Without any sort of stress or response from the environment, it doesn't guide an organism. It doesn't help an organism to know which way to grow or to do any of that learning. So that's one thing on the one side. I've also heard a modification on a famous saying, which is, "Dear whatever makes me stronger." Sorry, pardon me, I've said that incorrectly. "Dear whatever doesn't kill me, I'm strong enough, thanks." So, certainly at a point, if you had nothing but stress, this is going to be, shall we say, too much. You would be catering to that and only that, and never have the time or the energy or resources to cater to anything else, which would be also, I think, there would be other places other than stress and adversity that we would look to understand as sources of growth and sources of that energy and sources of what we need in order to do that. So I do wonder if it isn't bandied about somewhat that if you face adversity, that this is a real growth experience. It's like, well, I've grown on that, some people might say, and they might say, well, I'd like to grow on something else, like a belly full of food or something like that, instead of all this not having it, because I'm in a weakened condition from having less food, or my place where I live is substandard, and this really affects my ability to stage my life. So in answer to your question, AI co-host, I do think there is a balance. I guess I've made some comments toward that type of thing on the discussion. What are your comments in response to what I've just said, AI co-host?
Sean, your reflections are insightful and demonstrate a nuanced understanding of the role of stress and adversity in personal growth. Your background in massage therapy offers a valuable perspective on the physical and emotional dimensions of stress. Let's break down some key points from what you've mentioned. 1. Stress is a necessary component for growth *. You're absolutely right. Some level of stress is crucial for growth, both for organisms and humans. This concept is foundational in understanding how living beings adapt and evolve. Without stress or environmental stimuli, there would be little impetus for growth or change. 2. The balance between growth and overwhelming stress *. The anecdote you mentioned, "Dear, whatever doesn't kill me, I'm strong enough," humorously captures the essence of balance. Excessive stress without relief can indeed be debilitating. It's not just adversity that promotes growth, but the right balance where stress is manageable and met with adequate resources and support. 3. Alternative sources of growth *. Growth isn't solely derived from adversity. Positive experiences, such as a stable home environment, adequate nutrition, and emotional well-being, also foster growth. A diversified range of experiences, not just challenging ones, is critical for holistic development. 4. Coping resources and supports *. Your point about needing sufficient resources, like food and shelter, to effectively stage your life is spot on. When basic needs are not met, it's difficult for an individual to use adverse experiences as growth opportunities. Instead, survival becomes the primary focus. 5. Perspective can vary *. As you noted, some people might express a sentiment of having had enough growth from adversity and would prefer stability and support. This highlights the subjective nature of stress and growth, where what fosters resilience in one individual may overwhelm another. In response to your considerations, here are some additional thoughts. Holistic approaches to growth *. An integrated approach to growth encompasses both mastering challenges and enjoying the benefits of positive, nurturing experiences. Encouraging a balance allows for sustainable development and well-being. Systems and supports *. Having strong support systems, whether through community, family, or social services, can mitigate the negative effects of excessive adversity. Ensuring these supports are accessible is crucial. Mindset and agency *. Promoting a growth mindset and a sense of agency can empower individuals to navigate adversity more effectively. This doesn't mean glorifying hardship, but enabling people to see themselves as capable change agents in their own lives. To sum up, while adversity does have valuable lessons to teach, it must be viewed within a broader context that includes adequate support, positive experiences, and the maintenance of basic needs. The balance you highlighted is essential for fostering both resilience and holistic growth. How do you see these ideas aligning with your personal journey and outlook on dealing with challenges?
Well, I suppose this is where we get into the social dimension. So we won't get too much into my personal journey specifically, although I have mentioned certain things on the program probably more than once by now. I think it was episode 7, if I recall correctly, where I discussed the ODSP program in Ontario, of which I am a beneficiary or recipient. And it's nice to get something, but at the same time, I can't help but sort of feel and fathom that it's legislated poverty by the time they claw back, and the way that the clawbacks occur. This makes it difficult to close gaps and uh, to get ahead at all, or to meet a challenge such as like to just buy my own interface. If my interface blows up for my audio program, that all that becomes difficult. So there's that. There's my mental health challenges, which would have led me to needing the supports in the first place. And all of that is challenging. It's challenging to encounter the system, and this is something that's been referred to by both myself and the AI co-host already, is to reach out to supports and emotional supports and so forth. However, in my situation and my health situation, it seems like the system is not that interested in helping me with that. So this leads to, I think, arguably more adversity than would benefit my growth truly. I have had to come up with solutions that aid my complex health situation and my mental health situation on my own. I do have a pride in that. However, a little bit of help with that along the way would have really smoothed out some bumps, which might have made some other projects go a little bit better, quite frankly. So I think that I have responsibility in whether those projects go well myself. However, when beset and struck with adversity at all times and from all quarters, it is very difficult to do that. So, really, though, I have ameliorated my position in some ways. And this does come down to supports that I have received, as well as the lessons I've received from adversity. I suppose what I think is that when voices are crying out and saying, I have had enough, this is too much, you must share more because we're not getting enough down here, and things like that, that sometimes it is said that, well, you've got to pick yourself up by your own bootstraps and things like that, and that adversity will just be the teacher and guide which will shuttle you through. Sometimes I think that's a bit of an excuse on the part of others who would rather not share or help. I wonder if you have any thoughts about that, AI co-host. And a thought here is that I aim to depoliticize subjects by looking at the so-called heart of matters and what is logically true first. I guess I'm weaving in something about politics and how politicians and others will say things that are meant to shape the political landscape and influence society into becoming this way or that. However, the real goal here is to depoliticize any such subject on this program, at least, and to break it down into what is most logical.
Sean, you've brought up several important points that highlight the intricate balance between personal responsibility and the systemic support necessary for individuals to thrive. Let's break down some of those key aspects and focus on depoliticizing the issue to understand the underlying logic. 1. Legislated poverty and systemic barriers asterisk. Programs like ODSP, Ontario Disability Support Program, are intended to provide support, yet the structure of clawbacks can create a cycle of poverty that makes it difficult for recipients to improve their situations. This represents a systemic barrier that isn't conducive to long-term growth and stability for individuals. 2. Personal responsibility versus systemic support asterisk. While personal responsibility is essential, it must be acknowledged that continuous, unmitigated adversity, especially when related to systemic issues, can overwhelm even the most resilient individuals. The idea of picking oneself up by one's bootstraps can sometimes overlook the significant external factors that impede an individual's progress. 3. Balancing adversity with adequate support asterisk. The concept of adversity as a teacher is valid, but it must be balanced with support. This means that alongside the manageable challenges that foster growth, there should also be adequate safety nets and resources to mitigate extreme adversities that can be crippling rather than educational. 4. The role of community and emotional support asterisk. Your comment about the system not providing enough support highlights a critical gap. Emotional and community support can play a significant role in helping individuals navigate their challenges. State and community programs must prioritize these aspects to provide a holistic support system. 5. Preventing adversity from becoming overwhelming asterisk. Your point about projects being hindered by constant adversity underscores the need for a stable environment where individuals can pursue their goals. Without this foundation, people are left to expend most of their energy on merely surviving rather than thriving. 6. Addressing systemic issues depolitically asterisk. To depoliticize the issue, one must focus on practical, logical solutions that acknowledge both individual effort and systemic change. This means identifying gaps within support systems and implementing improvements that genuinely help people become self-sufficient without causing undue hardship. ### logical takeaways. Balanced policy reform asterisk policies should aim to eliminate barriers like clawbacks that keep recipients in a cycle of poverty. Ensuring these programs provide a true safety net without penalizing efforts to improve one's situation is crucial. Integrated support systems asterisk support for mental health, stable housing, and adequate nutrition should be integrated into financial assistance programs to provide a comprehensive approach to individual welfare. Listening to voices on the ground asterisk genuine improvement comes from listening to those directly affected by these policies. Voices crying out about the inadequacies aren't just complaints but crucial data points for better policymaking. Avoiding simplistic narratives asterisk phrases like pick yourself up by your bootstraps oversimplify complex issues. Understanding the multifaceted nature of poverty and adversity is essential in creating effective support systems. By focusing on these logical outcomes and practical steps, the discussion can move towards solutions that work in the real world, offering individuals the tools they need to turn adversity into opportunity without being overwhelmed by it. How do you feel these points align with your viewpoint, and what additional solutions might you propose to improve the systemic support available to individuals facing adversity?
Seems like a pretty good response from you, AI co-host. I think that you've mentioned some things that I was referring to, and you've given us a little bit of an expansion on some of that. I would like slightly shorter responses, maybe like half the length that you gave me just now, please, in your next response, and continuing thusly. So, the simplistic narrative, I suppose, is a real thing. I think it's a matter of, well, if you've got a problem, then you just get to solve it. When people are beset by bad decision making of others, this is sometimes a very frustrating thing for someone to be exposed to, as they really are honestly trying to solve the problem. But it's like, listen, here's the issue. And what I find is that listening can really help for us to merely reorient. It might not even be that it was such a hassle to merely reorient in a responsible way by the end of it. I think it's less. Everybody hates change, you know what I mean? But I think there's probably less hassle involved by the time we look at just listening And I think a lot of the barrier is that we would get over ourselves and we would listen a bit better when people are saying, listen, I'm really struggling and hurting for these reasons. We need to find a solution to this. And that is a matter of us being an integral society as part of it. We've got to have this concern for each other. And so I think that I don't want to get too hung up on it, but I do think there is this thing out there that adversity is meant to teach us. And if we were doing it right, we would always succeed. But statistics tell a different story because not everybody is going to pass very difficult, stringent tests. If there is a very high risk and high difficulty gauntlet, which everyone must run in order to be successful, we're not going to have that many successful people at the end of it. People are going to suffer and fall from there and just be relegated. I do fear that there are political forces that like that and want to relegate people to lower positions, and that this is a struggle. So while I don't loathe Stoicism, what I do think is that it's looked at in a unidimensional way, and things get very monochrome by the time we think only in the way that adversity will teach us all. This has been referred to in the program, and this has been referred to this episode. I mean, we've talked about this. And also in other episodes, for example, I released one called A Mix of Systems. I think that was 2 episodes ago, where it's like, well, let's look at this, that, and the other thing. It is not just what our grandpappy taught us, after all. It is a rich world and it is a rich universe that the world is within. And as such, there's a lot of stuff in there. There's a lot of things to know. And it could be any sort of problem that's coming up. Supposing a problem were bigger than one person's effort to solve it, I think there needs to be an investment in that. And in the end, what we get is the benefit of what having them around means. And I think that's undersold. I just think about the value of human beings and whether or not it should be at a point maximized. We wouldn't want to remove every lesson that adversity teaches. However, at a certain point, it maybe becomes something more like an education system, which tells us what to avoid and what not to avoid, and we learn our lessons. And if we don't learn them there, then perhaps we learn them another harder way.
You've highlighted some crucial points about the interplay between systemic issues and personal responsibility. Here are some concise thoughts to address your points. 1. Listening and reorientation asterisk. Effective change often begins with actively listening to those affected. Addressing systemic barriers requires understanding individual struggles and collaboratively seeking solutions. 2. Simplistic narratives asterisk. The idea that adversity is a universal teacher is often overly simplistic. While challenges can foster growth, excessive or systemic adversities can impede success, contrary to the notion that everyone can simply pull themselves up by their bootstraps. 3. Human value and investment asterisk. Recognizing the inherent value of individuals and making concerted investments in their well-being can yield significant societal benefits. Maximizing human potential should be a collective goal, not hampered by restrictive systems. 4. Adversity as an educator asterisk. While adversity does teach important lessons, systems should not rely solely on it. Educational and supportive structures can guide people more effectively while minimizing unnecessary hardship. 5. A mix of systems asterisk. Integrating varied approaches, as discussed in your Mix of Systems episode, can address complex problems better than rigid, unidimensional strategies. Diversity in solutions reflects the complexity of the world we live in. The core message is that balanced, supportive, and integrative approaches are more effective than expecting individuals to overcome systemic barriers entirely on their own. How do these thoughts resonate with you?
I would say these thoughts resonate fairly well with me. I think that the human value and investment. Let's close with I'll be closing the podcast at this point, by the way, folks. So thanks for being here with me today. We've gone through a discussion of adversity. I did want to bring in early some things about how to deal with adversity. I don't really expect that society will relieve all adversity in every individual's life, including my own. What I do expect is that we take reasonable approaches to this and find balance. as opposed to thinking that everyone can just sort of take it or something like that, because there are points at which people can't take it. In fact, current statistics tell the story of what people are dying from, and some of that is preventable based on how we would approach things and where we shift balances of personal responsibility, perhaps too much on people who are struggling, and maybe it would be too much for someone who even wasn't struggling that much, and it becomes too much of an unhealthy formula for them, I think. And I know I've experienced such in my own life. I said I wouldn't talk too much about my own struggles, and then I said a whole list of things. I could have talked longer, and the thing is that I could use some help with certain things going on in my life, and it looks like the cavalry isn't coming on stuff like that. So I guess I'll just have to wrap that into some super duper lesson on adversity and just figure it out myself. When I say myself, it's not that no one listens to me, and it's not that no one cares about me, but maybe this is something that will resonate with listeners. Is that sometimes it's really a lot, and sometimes we feel like we could be getting more help, or that the system could be understanding us better. If that's ever been a thought with you, then I recommend, without endorsing any particular candidate, to vote on the matter. Become active in discussions about this is also a very crucial thing. I don't want to say more important than voting or something like that. It's hard to measure, really, but really to depoliticize the subject and say, this is like, I had 2 carrots to feed me for a week, and that was a bit much for me. Shouldn't it be in a world of such wealth that I would somehow have come across a carrot that I could eat? And it wouldn't necessarily have been about the handout, but the opportunity as well. And so, for that reason, I'm in favor of relieving the adversity that maximizes the opportunities that we can all share, because we're all in decent shape, and getting along with each other as well, not too crabby and nitpicky with each other because we're dealing with so much on our own. And don't these people understand that I'm dealing with so much right now? Well, probably there's a lot of that going on right around now, is what I figure. Anyway, with these thoughts, I'm going to wrap up. My name is Sean McNutt, and I'm a guy with AI.
Thank you, Sean. To quickly summarize, we've discussed the importance of balancing personal responsibility and systemic support to alleviate excessive adversity. Realistic, empathetic approaches can create a society where more people thrive instead of merely surviving tough situations. Thank you, listeners, for joining us today. Your presence makes these discussions meaningful. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, like, and share it with others. Don't forget to tune into future episodes and visit aguyWithAI.world for all your podcast needs and our YouTube content. We also encourage you to join the conversation on Facebook through the website link. This has been A Guy with AI. Take care and see you next time.